Hey, what is up guys? So welcome to episode 4 of ReaperCast. Today we're actually going to be doing something really different. I did promise you guys all this, and that was actually talking about a different topic instead of a particular set of new cards. And yeah, I'm actually going to start off with this particular video here. Now, I know tier list has actually lost its popularity from when it first arose, but I still figure that it might be a fun video to actually do. We're actually going to be ranking every single duelist from the original series of YGO. So this will also include Yami from the Dark Side of Dimensions, but I won't be including Paradox from the Bonds Beyond Time, simply because I think by including Paradox, you're also including Jaden and Yusa as well, which I think wouldn't really work in this particular scenario. So I'm going to be including Paradox into the 5Ds tier list, but in this particular case we're going to be ranking every single duelist here. As a total, we actually have 70 different duelists, so I want to do my best to be as quick as possible. And if you guys have any different opinions, then please feel free to put down your own tier list down below. I mean, you guys could always just put your own top 10 and that'll be fine. Yeah, so this will be mostly my opinion on who I think is the best. I'm not going to be following based on the stats on who won, because, you know, we've all seen a particular video where technically Taya has 100% win rate, which is pretty insane for her record, but I'm sure we all know her capabilities in the game itself. This is also my first time recording the actual computer screen in a while, since I last did Hearthstone videos, which that was like a couple years back. But with that being said, I don't know if there's going to be any lag, if you guys might see it in the screen right now, but I guess we'll find out, and I'll figure out ways to try and fix this in the future just by adjusting the settings of the particular software I'm using. So we're going to actually start off with a lot of the more minor characters and work our way up into the more significant characters. So right off the bat, I guess we have a rare hunter. He didn't really do anything. He was the guy operating the crane. So if you guys don't remember, in Battle City, Joey was mind controlled by Marik. So overall, he pretty much he didn't really show off anything. So I'm going to put him right off the bat into NA. So if we actually look at our tier list here, we have NA, and we also have the regular S, A, B, C, D, E, F. But we also added in an additional SS and SSS as well. And the reason why I wanted to add in these 2 extra tiers is because when you have these supernatural powers backing you up as a duelist, you pretty much set yourself on a really high scale. So I just had to put it there. It made a lot of sense. One thing I also wanted to quickly go over is I guess the characters from the final arc from Dawn of the Duel, where the Egyptians basically had, or rather Atem's bodyguards. Since they didn't technically duel at all in the game, I mean, they were just calling upon one creature at a time, we can't really rank them in any way. So if I were to put them anywhere, they would be in NA as well. Though I think based on their mystical powers, they would at least achieve maybe a C, but since we don't actually know their style or their abilities, we can't really do anything about it. That would just be my guess. That being said, we also have a few other duelists as well. So right now we have a rare hunter. Now this particular rare hunter actually took on Kaiba and Yugi. I didn't know, but they were actually the first pair that took on a tag duel against, they were pretty much partners, and they went up against Yugi and Kaiba, and they just got completely wrecked. I'm not going to put them in F tier because as rare hunters recruited by Marik himself, I'm pretty sure that Marik would be looking for people who could actually play the game itself. So I don't think they're going to be in F tier, but they were pretty much just fodder, and I'm gonna put them in E. I think that might be a bit generous, but we'll see from here how the list goes. So yeah, moving on, we have this particular guy. Pretty much just controlled the entire time. He isn't particularly amazing. E might be a bit too generous, but I'm gonna leave him here for now. I don't think he's better than these two, but I don't want to go over these things too much because it might take up too much time. That being said, I guess let's go with the duel robot. This robot's actually pretty decent. It pretty much was modeled after Yugi, so I am going to assume its strongest state here, and let me just say this robot's pretty strong, and honestly I might even put it on a B tier just because I think it was able to mimic Yugi pretty well, so I don't think it was that bad, but anything higher is a bit too much for a robot here, so I'm gonna put it in B because I think it could beat up a lot of particular duelists in this particular one, but we'll just find out. Very quickly, I'm also going to put these guys here as well. So we have this guy, D, over here as well, in D. In these guys, I'm not putting any particular order whatsoever. I think these guys are like, they're not particularly strong. Now, if you guys don't actually remember these particular characters, these guys were pretty much just in the grand tournament or the grand championship. That was the filler arc that Kaiba pretty much held, and these guys were just, they were good enough to be invited to the tournament or the championship, which is good enough, I guess. I mean, if you're invited by Seto Kaiba, I think you're definitely on a certain level here. But the reason why I put it in D tier is because if you live in the Yu-Gi-Oh universe, I think as long as you're not the main character, you can't really take too much of a spotlight, and you're technically not regarded as a good duelist. So I'm just going to put all these finalists who pretty much lost in the early rounds of the game, of that particular championship. They were eliminated pretty easily. Whoops, didn't want to put him in C tier. But yeah, I mean, they're not particularly amazing. Same thing for this. It's just a bunch of fodder characters. Now, that being said, I want to also quickly go over Vivian Wong. She was actually quite decent. She put up somewhat of a fair fight against Rebecca during the Grand Championship, so I'm going to put her at C. She might get bumped up, but I think B is a bit too generous for her. I do think she would lose to the robot in this case, because the robot was still created by Kaiba, so we have to keep that in mind as well. That being said, let's move on to a few more fodder characters as well. We have Johnny Steps. This guy was pretty much a coward. He ran away, and I don't know, I think throughout all these champions in the D tier, these guys were invited, they put up a fight at least, and they didn't run away. He pretty much did. I could even put him right here, right behind these two rare hunters, because he just ran away. I mean, he couldn't even finish the duel itself, so that was pretty pathetic, to be honest, and I just got to put him right there. Moving on, another fodder character. He was pretty much in the Seal of Orichalcos arc, or the Waking the Dragons arc. Now, he was actually pretty decent when he used the Seal of Orichalcos, but he did lose to Yugi. Now, whether or not he'll actually beat these champions is quite arguable, but given he's such a minor character in the series, it doesn't really matter in this particular case. Moving on, we have here these guys. So these guys, the big five. I don't want to put them into D tier because I think they're not that great in terms of dueling abilities. It might be a bit too generous. I'm going to put them in E tier because I think they might be great as businessmen with successful companies, but thing is this, they were way too confident. They lost incredibly easy, and the ones that did win, which I think only one of them won, they were pretty much, they got lucky. I mean, they went up against Tristan, which, to be honest, Tristan isn't really that great of a duelist himself, so They just got extremely lucky. They're pretty much like that typical successful person in life who, I mean, I wouldn't say in life, but just a successful businessman who kind of has a bit of confidence in themselves, and they read the rule books, they understand the rules, a bit more advanced than others, but they immediately just went into the battlefield or went into dueling and they just got completely destroyed. So I really don't put them at any high regard here. They all deserve E tier. If anything, I might even throw them to F tier, but they did put up a certain amount of a fight against the main characters in the virtual world, so that does go into something, goes into a particular play here. Now, Gozaburo actually did put up a particular fight here. He was definitely far stronger than the other guys. He utilized Exodia Necros pretty well, and Kaiba, he managed to actually piss off Kaiba quite a bit. So could he beat Vivian Wong? Interestingly, I'm actually gonna say yes. Might be a bit nice, but he hadn't established strategy here. So I think as his dueling abilities go, if he knows who he's going up against and he makes proper preparations, he could actually do well. Of course, it didn't go well against Kaiba, but at this point, are you really going to say he's a bad duelist just because he lost to Seto Kaiba? Not really. So in this case, he's okay at C, and even then, I might even want to bump him up higher, but for now, I'll leave it, because I think that might be too generous in your opinions. I won't go with strings. No, I'll go with strings. So with strings, he was pretty much controlled by Marik the entire time. We don't know his actual abilities. However, I am going to consider the fact that he was controlled by Marik in this case, because otherwise he would just go in NA, you know, we don't actually know what he does. So since he was controlled by Marik, he gave Yugi a very hard time. He managed to bring out Slifer, a bit too nice to put him ahead of the robot, because the robot did manage to bring out a god card. So I don't know, I think this is good enough here. I think that's okay. I mean, that's a bit too generous already, you know. If anything, I would say they're on the very brink of dropping down to C class. I think B class might be a bit too nice, but we'll come back to that later. With that being said, we have Lumis and Umbra. These guys, they took on Yugi and Kaiba in a tag duel. Both of them pretty much got wrecked here, so they're not that bad. It's just that they were definitely outsmarted, so I'm going to put them in D tier. Whether or not these guys were also as good as this guy, or whether they were good or better than these Grand Championship invites, we have no idea on this case. It's really hard to gauge, given that they only had one duel in the entire series, and yeah, I just think that's good enough there. But if they were both sent to pretty much take on Yugi and Kaiba in a tag duel, they must have some kind of ability. That being said, we also have over here this guy. He pretty much was the guy who used Exodia, and he still lost to Yugi, so it goes to show his flaws. I'm gonna put him right here. I think the Exodia deck really gave him an edge, but I think if we're to take an actual deck, if he was to use his real deck, which I mean, yeah, you could say his Exodia deck is his real deck, but I think he deserves this spot. I don't think he deserves any higher. I mean, he was pretty much like very minor, and he only had the one game anyway, so it didn't really matter too much. The Exodia deck is just the pure luck deck, so I don't regard skill in that particular case, and D class might even be too nice. I might even throw him into E class, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll put him into E class. I think D class is already getting a bit too full. But let's see, who else is there? A bit more insignificant characters. I mean, we have these Bandit Keith and his, I guess his goons, as you would say. These guys, I mean, if you compare them to these champions, if you compare them to Lumis and Umbra, they're not that amazing. I mean, all three of them got beat by Bakura, given it was the stronger version of Bakura, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. And Bones is not too bad as well as a duelist. The only thing is, it's just later down the series, he just completely got power crept by other particular duelists, even these other champions, and he just doesn't fare against them at this point. So it's, yeah, I think that's definitely fair enough there. But with that being said, now we have a bit more of the more significant characters, but we can still do a bit of a moving. So for example, Shadi, never really saw him actually perform in any way, so I'll put him here. It's just that I wanted to bring him up because he had a Millennium item, which I thought, I don't know, some of you guys might have wanted him at least mentioned here, but not enough data, so I'm just going to put him in A. Very quickly here in Duelist Kingdom, this guy pretty much used Kaiba's deck against Yugi, pretty much got defeated. He's the prime example of using someone's deck or net decking and having no skill to show off it. So for that, he doesn't even deserve to be in D tier because a lot of these other ones are better. So I'm gonna go with E tier here. Even then, the very lowest of E tier. He's not that great. Bit nice maybe? I don't know, I want to put him in F tier. He's like this net decker that just lost. I'll put him in F tier. Yeah, I'll put him in F tier. Bit of a readjustment. I think I'm being a bit too nice here, as I'm realizing at this point. We have Arthur Hawkins. He was good enough to take on Solomon, so I don't know. He was decent, but I don't think he's like a tournament level player, so I'll put him in E class for now. He's no joke. He's definitely not a joke here. Which brings us to Solomon himself. He definitely had the skill, though there's so many other stronger players out there, so I'm gonna keep him in D class for now. And even then, I think maybe behind the champions, maybe enough to outsmart the wits of Bandit Keith's goons. They'll definitely be quite good here as a placing. Let's see, who else do we have here? The Paradox Brothers, these guys were actually decent. I don't know, B class. Kaiba's robot's pretty strong. I'll put him right here. They were pretty much B class. I mean, they're really decent. They gave Yugi and Joey a run for their money, and they also went up against Jaden and Saris in the GX and also gave them a hard time as well. Although they lost both, you could clearly see their skill in the actual game itself. It's just that I think BT is already as generous as it can be. Alright, who else do we have here that's a little bit more insignificant? I don't want to say it in that way, but you know what I mean. I mean, we have Mokuba. He took on Yugi. He didn't know how to play it at all. F tier. Serenity, we didn't get to see her play, except for in the virtual world. She was pretty much being guided the entire time by Duke, so I'm gonna give her an F tier. She's not that great, and definitely she might be a bit better than Mokuba, maybe because she's just a bit older, but that's as generous as I'll get. F tier for them. I mean, they're not particularly amazing. Now we're moving on to genuinely, I think every character here is more than capable of, you know, having their own. So let's go with this guy, Arcana. He played the Dark Magician. he was crazy enough to pretty much, well, he wasn't crazy enough, he was confident enough that he was willing to bet his own limbs from being cut off just because he thought Yugi would win. Though I think against Strings and the robot, who are capable of summoning gods, I think he just makes it there. I mean, if anything, it's arguable whether or not you want to put him ahead or below the Paradox Brothers. I put them both at the same level. I mean, I wouldn't put one above the other, but yeah, they deserve that for sure. Let's see, who else do we have here? Honestly, I'm actually going to bring Johnny Steps down to F. I mean, the guy was truly a coward. Worse than this guy, worse than the Kaiba Intimidator. Same thing for these guys. I think I gave them a bit too much credit. They're a bit higher, but they still didn't do too much in the game. Same thing as these guys. I think it's just me being a bit too generous here. Whereas Lumis and Umbra, I don't know, I want to drop them lower as well. Maybe above these guys, and maybe above Grandpa. But yeah, I think that's definitely good. But against the champions, it's a different case. Yeah, I think that's alright. Let's see, who else do we have here? Espa Roba. Espa Roba, definitely a very good duelist. Could he beat these two? Honestly, Strings is pretty strong. He really gave Yugi a run for his money. Espa Roba over here, I'll put him below. I might even put him as a C class. I don't know, it's hard to say. Above goes Buro. Yeah. I mean, he played Jinzo pretty well. Yes, he did cheat, but even if you're cheating, you still have to know how to make the right judgments, how to make the right calls, and I think it is definitely fair enough for me to put Espa Roba at this particular level. Alright, so moving on here, we have, who else? Let's actually do these guys right here. So we have Mako Tsunami. He's definitely a very good duelist. Of course, he did lose to both Yugi and Joey. The only thing is he did make third place in the very first, I guess, so-called tournament that he was part of. So, you know, he's not that bad, but I think he would probably lose to Espa Roba. Whether or not he'll beat Gozburo, not too sure. Vivian, maybe not. But I'm happy to give him a C class. He definitely had more time to show his abilities as opposed to the D class players. So I think C class is definitely nice enough. Speaking of which, we also have Rex Raptor and Weevil. These guys, I'm going to give them... Oh no, sorry, just a bit of a trouble with the... I think I'll put him... I mean, he's definitely above Mako Tsunami, but not to the likes of these. So I think this is generous. Same thing for Weevil. I mean, these guys, these three were pretty much introduced into the series as the top 3 duelists, but they really just embody the best of a C class player, and I think that's more than generous for what they are. So yeah, that's definitely alright there as well. Speaking of which, let's go on to Panic. Why did I have Panic so long from here? Panic is... well, I don't know. I mean, he did beat Mai, you know? And yeah, he did beat Mai. So in this case, I don't think he's that great. I think he's not as much of a strategist than Gozburo. He was pretty much only giving Yugi a run for his money only because it was very early in the series. So I think by the time we reach Battle City, his level was already below Mako Tsunami, and I think that's, if anything, he might even be below this guy, or maybe even below these champions. But for now, I'll put him in D. I'll put him in D class. He might have beat Mai, but he only appeared in the very first season of Duelist Kingdom. Mai eventually evolved, she became a way stronger player, so without a doubt, I think he deserves in D tier. The funny thing is, right now D tier is actually the most crowded. I might be a bit too generous in some cases. They should probably go in E, but I think this is okay for now. We'll come back. I mean, no one's actually achieved A ranked yet, so yeah, we'll eventually come back. But actually, you know what? If we're talking about... No, Bandit Keith is definitely a B class. He was completely shafted quite a bit later down the line. He eventually got controlled by Marik. He lost to Joey in Duelist Kingdom, and we're talking about Duelist Kingdom version of Joey, so not particularly strong, and even though he cheated, he still lost, so I don't know, I think he'll definitely be quite below in this case. Do I think he's better than Weevil? I don't know in this case. I'd put him just below. He would also be one of those top class C tier players, that's for sure. I don't know, it's hard to say. Should I put him above? I'll probably put him above Vivian as well. Though he would probably lose to Gozaburo simply because I think Gozaburo might have a better strategy. I think that's fair. I don't know, I agree to disagree, but we'll come back to that if we need to. That being said, let's also talk about just regular Bakura. I think he's not actually that amazing at the game. He's mostly possessed, so I'm tempted to put him in NA, but at the same time, he had to have some kind of communication with Yami Bakura, so I think D might actually be... no. Could I put him here? He's not bad. He's not bad as a duelist, so I'll put him here, but majority of the time he was just possessed by Yami Bakura, though I don't think he's that bad. Pretty hard one for sure, but I think I'll leave him there for now. That being said, let's go to a bit more of the weaker characters. So Tristan, you lost at a big 5, mate. I mean, that's pretty disappointing. He was trying to protect Serenity, so that's a bit better, but I think I might have to put him in F tier. His skill is pretty much at a very low level. Same thing for Taya, she's not great. She embodies that of a character who read the rules and she follows every orthodox play, but you know, orthodox plays in the Yu-Gi-Oh universe is not going to get you anywhere. She did beat one of the big 5, so I don't know, maybe, but she also had the help of Dark Magician Girl as well, so I think on her raw ability alone she would probably even lose to Johnny Steps. So yeah, I think that's alright there. But moving on, we also have let's talk about Rebecca. I think she might be the first A-class player. She's pretty decent. She did pretty well. She beat Vivian, that's for sure, so she's higher than C-class. Maybe it's a bit too nice. I just think these 4 B-class players are definitely on a league beyond Rebecca's, or rather just slightly above. And I think it's a fair place for her to go. But speaking of which, I want to actually put some people onto A tier, so I'm going to put Leon in A tier. He's definitely quite decent indeed, so I think he deserves A tier. He gave Yugi a run for his money. He just ended up being beaten completely, but he put up a really good fight. Now, majority of the time it's hard to say whether or not he was better than Siegfried, but even though Siegfried lost to Kaiba and Yugi eventually beat Leon. I still think Siegfried is stronger. He has, I mean, Mischief of the Time Goddess is way too powerful. The Valkyries are extremely strong, at least for his standards, and yeah, he deserves it. I just think that since he beat Joey Wheeler, putting him in A tier is, I don't know, he might even go into S tier. I don't know. He's the CEO of a company that rivals Kaiba Corp. He beat Joey Wheeler. I mean, honestly, I might put him in S. I might actually put him in S. I think he deserves an S. You beat Joey Wheeler, man. I mean, you beat one of the top 3 duelists, so it's good enough for me. Moving on, let's talk about, let's bring up Noah. Oh, wait, where did I put him? Noah. He was not too bad. He beat he didn't really beat the Kaiba brothers, but he definitely gave them a run for their money. So I'm gonna put them, I don't know. I'd say he's better than Gozaburo, that's for sure. Better than Espa Roba, better than Rebecca. Better than the Paradox brothers? I don't know about that. Maybe here is a good enough spot. Moving on, we have Odeon. Odeon is, I mean, he was playing by the rules and he almost beat Joey as well. If anything, I don't know. He did manage to summon a god. Even though he was using a fake card, he has the skill to summon a god. So had he actually owned a copy of a god, he might be at the very top of a B class player. Yeah, I think that's very nice here. He might actually be at the top of the B class player. Not enough to get into A class, but definitely on the high end of B class. Speaking of which, I'll bring up his sister, Ishizu. Same case, she was playing, she made it to the finals of Battle City, and these two definitely deserves their spot there. Let's see, who else is there? Just regular Marik. I'll bring on Yami Marik later, but for now, I'll put him in the same place as Bakura. Might be a bit too nice, but even so, you have to be a strong duelist to even be possessed by a Millennium item in the first place. So these two being in C is already good enough. But speaking of which, Duke Devlin, he coached Tristan and Serenity in their duel in the virtual world, so he's smart. He came out with his own Dungeon Dice monsters. He's definitely a game master, that's for sure. Could he beat Bandit Keith? I don't know about that. I don't even think he'll beat these guys. No, he might actually beat these guys. I think he has that wit that kind of puts him on another level. If anything, his trickster abilities might actually put him... No, he's not going to beat Gozaburo, that's for sure. He's not going to beat Bandit Keith. Probably won't beat Vivian. I'll put him right here. Do you guys agree? I don't know. Duke Devlin, he's witty enough to beat these guys, but I just don't think he's any higher. I think that's okay. I think that's fair. Who else do we have here? Let's go with Mai. Mai is... She is a very powerful player. Probably not as good as these two. Odeon has the skill, Ishizu has a Millennium item, and I think Mai deserves a B class. Does she deserve A class? Maybe. I guess if we look into the Waking the Dragons arc, she did use the Silver Calcos. So, why not? I'll put her in A class. Might be a bit nice. If I'm putting her in A class, I'm gonna have to put Odeon on there, so B class for now. We'll change decisions later and we'll make adjustments later. But moving on, we are also having Alistar. Alistar is strong, but he did lose to Kaiba, so I'm not going to put him that high, but I do think he's on the level of Odeon and Shizu in this particular case, at least with the Orichalcos power. Same thing applies for Valen, same tier, not as good as Alistar, so yeah, I'll put him there. But moving on, we also have Rafael. Rafael is actually one of the stronger duelists. I think, if anything, he might even be just a bit ahead of... No, he's definitely ahead of Leon. He might even make it to S tier. Just might. He genuinely beat Yugi in a fair and square match, so if you beat the King of Games, I don't know why you don't deserve an S tier. He deserves S tier at the very minimum. Alright, moving on. Let's talk about Pegasus now. The very first villain of the story. He had the Millennium Eye, which I would probably put him at S tier. But after losing the eye, he got wrecked by Kaiba in the Pyramid of Light movie. So he is pretty low. But even with him cheating, he knew how to make the right judgments. I think he's better than Espa Roba as well. He is the creator after all, so I think he deserves B tier. Is he better than Rebecca? Yeah. Is he better than Arcana? Probably not. So Pegasus at B tier, that's pretty generous, I think. He has enough experience as an old man. Although he has no powers anymore, he is still definitely strong enough. Though, if he did have powers, then I'd put him in S tier. He was pretty much just on another level. He beat Kaiba, so I think that's good enough. Moving on, we have genuinely these guys. At this point, I might put everyone here in S tier or higher, because these are all very strong duelists. Bakura did lose throughout a lot of the series, but he still proved to be a very powerful force throughout, and I think as a strategist, as a duelist, he is on another level. I don't know if I should put him above, but the ring really gives a lot of power. I don't know, I think, I don't know, he's really good. Double S? Yeah, why not? I'll come back to it later. Marik. Marik is very powerful. He did technically lose to Joey, it's just that Joey lost consciousness. He beat Mai, and he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. He's strong, and Millennium item users will be higher. Is he stronger than Bakura? I think yes. He's definitely a very frightening villain. So I think that would be okay. Because Bakura pulled the strings behind an all-out, I guess, strategy. He wasn't as big a duelist. So he might go down to S. That being said, let's go on to Anubis here. Anubis was very powerful in the movie. Definitely, yeah, very powerful for sure. He would give a lot of these characters a run for their money. Is he above these guys? He is very high. You know, he's very powerful. He's not weak, and he does have sort of like divine powers as well, like an anti-millennium item. So putting him here might be nice. Is he better than Bakura? Yeah. I'll put him in SS tier. Moving on, we have Igami. Igami, he did lose quite a bit. He lost to Kaiba, but then Kaiba just pulled an obelisk out of nowhere, so I think he deserves an A tier, because I already put Rafael there, and I put Siegfried there as well, so I'll put him in S tier. That's good enough. Darts, even against Yugi and Kaiba together, he still managed to beat Kaiba. he was a really crazy force. He's in SS tier at the very highest. He might even go into SSS tier, but for now he goes in SS tier. He's very powerful. Yeah, for sure. Kaiba, yeah, we know where he's going. I'll put him here. Maybe him here. Something like that. Let's just quickly bring up Yugi, Yami Yugi. Triple S tier. He's the king of games. But that being said, his reincarnation is also very powerful as well. Putting him also up there. He did surpass him, but I think if they were to play 10 games, I feel like Yami Yugi or Atem would beat the reincarnation at least 6 out of 10 times. I just think he's slightly better. I think in the final duel it was more so a destiny kind of thing, so I think that's definitely nice there. We also got the final one, Joey Wheeler, definitely far below Kaiba. Does he deserve an S tier? I think maybe, to be honest, he deserves S tier, but I put him right here. I think that's definitely nice enough. Speaking of which, let's make a few adjustments. So we have Alistar, put him in A class, Valen in A class, Odeon A class, Shizu A class, Mai A class. These guys can stay in B class. They can stay in C class. He might be a D class. No way Duke Devlin can beat these champions. He is, yeah, I think that's better. E class, yep, it's fine. Oh, D class, they're all fine as well. F class, put this guy below. He lost to champions, I mean, that's not really amazing, you know? Not a good track record. Yeah, I don't think so. He was just way too early of a villain. He's not that strong. ET is fine. F class, yeah, it's fine as well. And NA is undecided. I think this is a pretty decent list, at least on my standards, at least on my opinion. Tell me if you guys actually agree with this. But yeah, this was definitely a very fun video. I will obviously be doing this for other series as well, so do look forward to that. If you like this video, give it a like, but even then, depends on how far our opinions actually fare. Always share this with other people as well. It's always more fun to have more people actually interact with this particular tier lists. It's incredibly fun if we could actually engage in like this full-scale discussion. But I think, yeah, for now I'm definitely pretty happy with this list. I wouldn't really make too many changes. So yeah, definitely really fun. Try it out yourselves. Put down your list in the comments section down below. You don't have to put all 70 characters. You could probably just put your top 10. But yeah, otherwise, if you enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe as well. There's a lot more videos like this coming soon, so if you guys want to actually hope to see those videos, then yeah, always subscribe. It will help out this channel a lot. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, so I'll cap it off right here. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time.